No, I'm still looking at that.
Good evening. Welcome to our city council meeting for January 28th, 2020 at 6 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ortega.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lauer.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson.
Here.
Councilmember Estes.
Here.
Councilmember Applegate.
Here.
Councilmember Geek.
Here.
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
All 7 members present.
Okay. Thank you all. I hope everyone's doing well tonight. We'll go ahead and get started. We have some presentations to look at. And our first one is a proclamation declaring the week of February 22nd as Engineers Week. Mr. Fink.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, City Council, senior staff, and public. I have with me the president of the National Society of Professional Engineers local chapter, the Pikes Peak chapter, Harry. And I have Ariel, who is the president of the Society of Women Engineers, Pikes Peak section. So we're all three here representing the engineering community in the region to thank you for adopting this proclamation for Engineers Week, which is in 3 weeks. So,
We ready?
would you like me to read it, or?
No, I'll go ahead and do it. A proclamation declaring that henceforth the week of February 22nd will be recognized as Engineers Week throughout the city of Fountain, honoring city engineers and the work they do. Whereas Engineers Week, currently presented by a formal coalition of more than 70 engineering, education, cultural societies, and more than 50 corporations and governmental agencies, was founded in the United States by the National Society of Professional Engineers 69 years ago. And whereas Engineers Week is celebrated in February at the time of George Washington's birthday, because he was an engineer as well as our nation's first president. And whereas the purpose of Engineers Week is to raise public awareness and appreciation of the engineering profession. And whereas the important efforts of engineers help drive our economy, protect our environment, and ensure public safety. And whereas engineers in the state of Colorado will actively help to maintain and sustain the vital infrastructure of our civilized and natural environments. And whereas engineers help America remain at the forefront of technological development and contribute to countless breakthroughs that improve the quality of life for people throughout the world. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the mayor and the city council of the city of Fountain, Colorado recognize engineers for the positive contributions and service that impact every aspect of life in Fountain, Colorado, and thank them for their efforts to improve our daily lives locally, nationally, and globally, and do proudly proclaim henceforth the week of February 22nd as Engineers Week, and encourage our citizens to congratulate this profession on its many accomplishments done this 28th day of January 2020. I'll make that my motion. Mayor Pro Tem.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the proclamation. Please vote.
7 yes, motion carried.
All right, well, thank you all for coming down and all the work that you guys help us with, because without you, I don't know where we'd be, so thank you.
Thanks for the proclamation.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you so much. We're excited to have this.
Okay, thank you. Take care. All right. Our next one is a presentation of the Fountain Creek Watershed District. Ms. Allison, I don't want to mispronounce your last name.
It's a tough one. It's Shook. I know. Like, think of Shook's Run.
Shook.
Helps.
Okay.
Great. Well, I am very pleased to be in front of you this morning, or this evening. My name is Allison Shook. I'm the Watershed Outreach Coordinator for the Fountain Creek Watershed District. And excuse me. Tonight I'm here to share with you some information about what the Watershed District is about. They've been doing a lot of work in the area for the last 10 plus years. And we want to just share what we're working on with you. We want to remind you that we have been doing a lot of work, but there's still a lot more that needs to be done. And just kind of share some information about what we're all about in the hopes of continuing that effort as we continue. So I do want to point out Lisa Bachman is here as well. She works on behalf of the Watershed District doing a lot of our public relations, and she's sort of here to grade me. This is our first presentation of this type. We've got this kicking off this evening, and we'll be hoping to get out in the community and share this message. So if anyone has thoughts or ideas about inviting us to speak with you about this, we're happy to do that. So,
Allison, are you the one that's in charge of the newsletter that's going out now?
yes.
Okay, all right. name of the face now, so, yeah. No, that's good. No,
We will mention the newsletter, so yes, you'll hear
Okay,
about that
good.
here in just a little bit. All right, so the Watershed District the idea was born about 2006 when Ken Salazar, who was then a senator, visited the area and really saw a lot of potential. There's a lot of great things happening in the watershed back then, but there is a lot more that can be done. And so he sort of realized that this was a crown jewel that needed protection and enhancement. And so there was a 2-year task force, the Fountain Creek Vision Task Force, engaged over 200 citizens to get a grip on how we could really make this the most effective organization. And this was, like I said, 2 years of stakeholder engagement. We really believed in science-based solution and collaborative community engagement. And so an intergovernmental agreement was developed between Pueblo and El Paso counties. And on April 30th, 2009, Governor Ritter signed it into law, and the Watershed District was born. The main goals are to mitigate the flooding, erosion, and sedimentation that we see so prevalently, to help address the water quality issues, improve drainage, partner for protection of open space, enhance wildlife habitat. So all things that should be important to us as we all use water every day and rely on our watersheds for drinking water, for recreation, for agriculture. Well, we really want to add value to our watershed communities here. When you look to our neighbor in the north, Denver, back in the 60s, 70s, they had a horrible waterfront there, just polluted and filled with debris, and no one wanted to hang out there. Well, they said, we're going to invest in our watershed and our creeks, and we're going to provide recreational assets instead of eyesores. And now you look at that Denver along the South Platte River, and it's the second highest valued properties in the state, second to Aspen, all because they embraced their waterways, embraced those creeks that provide us so much. So that's really what we're trying to do, is keep adding value to our waterways. There is a governing board that the Watershed District consists of, and that was really designed to have 4 members representing El Paso County and 4 members representing Pueblo County. There's also one landowner who represents kind of the landowner voice. And then we have Larry Small, who's the executive director. He will be retiring this April, so we're excited to see kind of where the next step will take us. This does list the board members from 2019. They just voted in the 2021s, and that will be, we'll get to go ahead and update that. Do want to recognize Council Member Lauer for serving on the Watershed District Board for years. It's been a pleasure working with you. In addition to the district board, there are several committees that will provide recommendations to the board. One is a technical advisory committee. They really dig deep into these on-the-ground projects that are helping protect our waterways. We have a citizens advisory group, which is simply that, citizens that care about our watershed and want to do a little bit more. We have an outreach subcommittee where we're actually getting out there and engaging with our citizens. And then there's the Monetary Mitigation Fund Advisory Committee, and that one was set up to help responsibly utilize the $50 million from Colorado Springs Utilities to mitigate any impacts from the Southern Delivery water system. So that group has been meeting, and this was the last year of the last year of the payment. So we're still looking at additional funding for the Watershed District. All the meetings that these groups are participating in are open to the public, and any of you are welcome to visit our website or step into a meeting if you're interested in joining us. Little basic terminology. What is a watershed? We use that word quite a bit. Well, we all live in a watershed. We all impact our home watershed, and it impacts us. How many of you have suffered from maybe flooding or noticed a little bit of pollution in the water? These are all things that tie us to our home watershed. Watersheds are like those Russian nesting dolls, where there's a little one that fits into a bigger one and a bigger one. And the main concept is that water is always flowing downhill. And when that water travels, it picks up things along the way, pollutants, and causes problems for those downstream. So we're concerned about our home watershed as well as our neighbors to the south. Here's what our watershed looks like. If you're in 4th grade, we call it the chicken tender. You can kind of see the image there. So we have 927 square miles of land and water that all drain to a common point. And there's 3 counties. We have El Paso County, Pueblo County, and just a little bit of Teller County. The headwaters of Fountain Creek is actually right behind the Walmart in Woodland Park. So although Teller County is not at the table in terms of board membership, we do include them in our education and outreach initiatives. Now, the biggest thing about our watershed that makes it one of the most erratic watersheds in the country is the elevation change. You look at the top of Pikes Peak, over 14,000 feet, and by the time that water has gotten to the plains of Pueblo, we've lost over 10,000 feet of elevation over just 70 miles. So you think about how water travels, and if it's traveling on a slope, it's going to move what? Faster? It's going to create more erosion. So this natural setting that we have creates a lot of problems right from the gates. So we also have these erosional soils. We have huge variations in temperature and precipitation where it can pour rain in one part of town and you have nothing in the other. So we do have a watershed that is extremely erratic. And we're also, like I said, concerned about our downstream neighbors. We are a headwater state, and we ultimately have a huge responsibility to the 19 neighbor states that rely on water that starts right here in Colorado. We have a lot of responsibility to our downstream neighbors, and what we like to educate people about too is that even though we may be a landlocked state here in Colorado, you look at the path that water follows, where does it end up? In the Gulf of Mexico. So when they measure this thing called the dead zone every year in the Gulf of Mexico, where it's a huge area of ocean that's completely devoid of life, not one little sea star, no little Nemos, no dolphins. That's because of all of the upstream pollution, beginning way up north in Minnesota, the Dakotas, but Colorado's a part of that too. So we like to impart that on people that it's not just our home communities, but we truly impact the oceans. It's a global issue. Well, you probably have seen some of this looking around the community. Have you noticed that our population is growing? Yes. And so as we find homes and businesses, we have to pave the surfaces. So we go from this beautiful natural habitat that is functional, has ecosystem services, and when you pave that, when you turn it into hard surfaces such as streets and parking lots and houses, that water doesn't have anywhere to go. And it will blast out the nearest creek just as soon as it can. So Mother Nature does find a way, and we're seeing a lot of these changes now as a result of a lot of really fast development throughout the 80s and up to today. We have additional factors that impact our watershed. Like many communities across the country, we have aging infrastructure, something we're all going to have to deal with. We have suffered the result of 2 major wildland urban interface fires, the Waldo Canyon in 2012, Black Forest in 2013, still dealing with those post-fire conditions, and that will probably continue through our lifetimes. We do have flashy creeks where we've had people get swept away, not realizing what's happening upstream and all that water is coming downhill. And then we have water quality concerns such as E. coli and the PFAS issue. Water quantity is a concern as well. As we continue to grow our population, there's no new water. So we're going to have to find a way to stretch these precious water resources. Some additional consequences when we don't manage our streams properly. This shows years of erosion that's created 50-foot cliffs at a place called Frost Ranch, which is just south of Fountain here. So 80 feet of productive agriculture land has been lost over time. And like I said, we're losing not only the land, but those functional ecosystem services, the filtration, the stabilizing of banks, the slowing of flows, nutrient uptake. So we're seeing a lot of this happening. A lot of the creeks are becoming wider and straighter, which means even more damage occurs downstream. Here's another image of our home watershed. You can see at the top we have Palmer Lake. On the west is Woodland Park. We go to Green Mountain Falls, Manitou Springs, Colorado Springs, Fountain, and then Pueblo. So we're going to take a little bit closer look at what I like to call the corridor, which is this stretch of creek from the southern tip of Fountain all the way down to Pueblo. That's where the majority of that $50 million from Springs Utilities has been spent. But a lot of it's on private land, so people haven't been able to really take a look at what we've been doing since 2009. 6 construction projects totaling $20+ million, 14 comprehensive planning studies, and this doesn't just happen with the district board. We have a huge network of partners. So Colorado Springs Utilities has provided financial support, CDOT, cities and counties within the watershed, and the Lower Arkansas Water Conservation District as well. We've also done a great job of trying to stretch those dollars as much as possible. So we look for grants through the Colorado Water Conservation Board, the United States Geological Survey, the Department of Local Affairs, Great Outdoors Colorado, and Parks and Wildlife, to name a few. So let's take a gander at a couple of these projects. This one is located at Highway 47, and this is about 3,000 feet of creek here. There was a flood in 2015 that really realigned the whole creek bed, and it was just about heading into the bridge of Highway 47. So CDOT is clearly concerned about their bridges and roadways, so they partnered with us on this one. And want to point out on the right-hand side the natural materials that we're trying to utilize. You can see there's a huge planting that's been done right along the riparian area next to the water, and then we cover that with a material called cory wrap, which is like a kind of a coconut husk. So it's very thick, but it will also break down over time. So as those trees begin to grow in, that cory wrap will break down, leaving a nice natural environment for those trees to fill in. Here's another one on private property, the Masciantonio Trust Bank Restoration. You can see the bank has just been chewed away there on the bottom side, again, losing a lot of agricultural land. And what we did here is included some bendway weirs, and these bendway weirs are these little lines, they're rocks, actually, rock formations that jut out to really control the flow of the river and keep it in its banks. This site as well, we planted 5,000 willow and cottonwood plantings, so you can imagine the great habitat that's going to be here, the shade that those trees will provide, and continuously enhance this habitat over time. This is an active project. On the right side, you can see the two white arrows. That's sort of the limits of the project. And in this particular stretch of Fountain Creek in Pueblo, the creek is 600 feet wide and almost completely straight. So this is not what we want to see. So what this project will do will stabilize the channel, reduce erosion and then the compounding sedimentation, and create a lot of riparian habitat and wetlands. So that one's going to be completed here early this year. And then here's another kind of innovative process that we're using. If you take a look on the right there, well, on the left you could see the huge cut bank, so we're losing a lot of valuable land again. But what we did on the right is included a tow wood structure. So where you bury these gigantic logs in the ground, tie them together, and they're going to really stabilize and capture any extra sediment that's flowing through, and then over time they will break down. So a lot cheaper to utilize the wood material versus a lot of the rocks that we're seeing in some creek projects. Here's another bridge stabilization, the Piñon Bridge, also south of us here. It washed away in the 1999 flood and was rebuilt in 2004. Then it washed away again. So we're fixing it hopefully once and for all. Really, it's just had a lot of damage from these floods. You can see the creek is braided there, so we fixed the main channel once again with the cory wrap and the vegetation. So that's going to be a great one to watch grow in as well. There's been a lot of planning efforts through the Watershed District. There was a big flood in 2013, and so we used a lot of stakeholder engagement for the neighbors, particularly in Upper Fountain Creek and Upper Cheyenne Creek, this on the west side, and identified 97 different projects in that particular effort. We've drained hundreds of tons of sediment out of the Pueblo levee. We've got a Monument Creek restoration plan, same thing in the Monument Watershed up north. We've looked and identified a bunch of projects there with the Air Force Academy as a partner. And then Frost Ranch, May 14, that was one of our earlier projects, just a little baby project compared to what we're dealing with now. In all of these projects that have been studied and identified, we're looking at over $1 billion in identified needs to protect land, to enhance habitat, to provide recreational opportunities. So no shortage of work to be done, which is a good place to be. This is kind of my world, is the public education and outreach. You may have heard of a little program we call Creek Week. It's the largest cleanup in the state of Colorado. Last year we engaged 3,500 volunteers from Palmer Lake all the way down to Trinidad. And in 6 years' time, we've removed over 100 tons of trash. So that is really the district's signature program. It's a way to get people out into those watersheds to go, oh, I didn't realize they were in such poor condition, and gosh, I could probably be doing a little bit more around my home watershed. We also have the first of its kind called the Brewshed Alliance, where we've partnered with 20 breweries across the area. Because what's the number one ingredient in beer? Water. Yes, they get it. They know that they need good, clean water for great beer. And we work with them to sort of elevate the value of water through very informal events at these breweries. In fact, the one here in Fountain, we did what was called a clean and crawl this summer, where we had sort of the pub crawl where we were walking through the neighborhoods and picking up trash, and we ended at the brewery, and a great time was had by all. So please join us for some of those events. As I mentioned, we're taking this particular program out on the road. If you have a group that's interested in learning a little bit more about their watershed, we can certainly tailor that to any group that's looking for that. We also will be out in community events. We have an e-newsletter, and Miss Lisa here has a clipboard. If you want to go ahead and this is for everyone in the audience, go ahead and sign up for that e-newsletter. It comes out once a month. Great information about what the Watershed District is doing. And then you can check out both FountainCreek.com and Fountain Creek Week for a lot more information on what we do. So education is really a key piece of what this Watershed District is all about. We have a vision for a strong, resilient, and sustainable ecosystem that supports all of the water-related activities that we all enjoy. But we need your help to do it. We cannot do this on our own. We have a huge amount of land and water to manage, and there's always a little bit more that you all can do. So if you're a pet owner, one thing we ask you to do is bring a bag and do what? Scoop the poop. All right, that's one of our initiatives. So there's always something more that we can do. We'll be taking this program out on the road, like I said, and Commissioner Gonzalez is here tonight. He'll be presenting this around the communities. So we ask you to join our newsletter, check us out at an event. And then I'm just curious from you all, what did you think of this presentation? Is this the kind of information that you're looking for? Is there some other mystery about the district that we could help solve for you? We really want to be here as a resource. So I guess that's kind of about the end of my presentation. So I appreciate your time and be happy to entertain any questions or comments.
Any questions? No, I don't have any. I was sitting next to Governor Ritter when he came and signed the bill, and so have been kind of really involved with that district since its inception, and Fountain's always wanted to be the home of the district because it's our namesake, and we do a lot as a staff and community to make sure that we're involved. And I used to say early on that Pueblo likes to take all the credit for getting all the damage, but it comes through here first. And so we want this to be successful for us here in the community. So thanks for everything. Ms. Estes.
I got to attend your stakeholder meeting, was last week, and it's a great informative thing for the public, and they're going to have another one March 18th right here at 2 p.m. So
yeah, and that
encourage everybody
particular
to get here.
stakeholder engagement is around a new grant that we got from GOCO and Parks and Wildlife, where we're going to be developing the Front Range Trail that you may have heard of, that's going to extend north and south across a whole
So
state.
there's some really good information there, so I encourage everybody to participate in that. So March
Awesome.
18th, 2 p.m. right here.
Thank you.
Okay, I got no other lights. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming down. All right. Good to know all that stuff that's going on, and anytime you guys see a meeting or something, more than welcome to come and join the meeting and see what's going on. Greg's been representing us now for 3 or 4 years? 6 years? Has it been that long already? Oh, wow. Okay, 6 years. But it's been a lot of fun, so thanks a lot. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, City Council agenda requests and announcements. I'll start with Ms. Dietra. Anything?
I just would like to say thank you for all that attended the MLK program at the DFAC. We had a great time. I also attended another event. I can't think of the name, but it was on January 18th at CTU, and it was regarding the census and different things going on with voting. So I encourage everyone, we have a great team that's working with our census, and so I encourage everyone to participate.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Geek, nothing? Mr. Applegate?
Yeah. Over the weekend, I was at an event where Doug Lamborn was at, and after everything was over, I got to have a nice private conversation with him. And he told us that there's H.R. 535 is now up for vote, and it's the PFAS Action Act of 2019. And it looks like it gives money to people, but what it would do, any place with PFAS would be designated as a Superfund site, which would really drop property values and make it impossible to sell houses. You'd be locked in, and nobody wants that. So I was hoping that we could make a proclamation that this board does not back that and is against it.
And I'm going to look to Curtis real quick because this has come up before in the past when we first started all this about possibly this super fun stuff, and it's not really something that we want to be a part of. So could you two work together on, and maybe John, an appropriate resolution to do that? So this is at the federal level.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, because I think we don't want to be a part of that. And it sounds enticing because, hey, there's free money involved, but it labels as super fun, which isn't a good thing for your community. So let's go ahead and figure that out. And how quickly do we need that?
He didn't give me a date on the vote, but it's coming up fairly quick.
Okay. So if we can do something, I don't know, at least by the next meeting. Okay? All right. Is that good?
That's good.
Anything else?
That's it. That's it.
Okay. Ms. Estes.
As long as we're talking about the PFAS, I've been invited to participate with the Citizens Advisory Panel for the next round of testing for the blood testing for the PFAS initiative. Then this is it's not really a grant. It's CDC, their branch is funding a study through Dr. Adgate at CU Public Health School. And so I'm going to be representing the city so that we know what's going on with that. And the next one, and the testing will probably start in the fall. The next one is the museum has their next lecture series on February 8th, and it's on the history of the families of Fountain, some of our pioneer families from here.
All right. Thanks. Mayor Pro Tem.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Ms. Thompson.
Yeah, Greg, if you could pass those down. I have the updates, Todd, for some of the bills that have been introduced in the legislature. Some of this is from what continuation of what we had last time, but you'll notice where we typed in the word addition, and so it's new bills or new information that's coming up. The one bill we do want to touch base on that Curtis is really on top of with our legislator is House Bill 2011-19, which is a PFAS bill. And Curtis was actually up there today, up in Denver, and so I'll come back to you in just a second and let you share your information because I don't want to double do what he was doing. But a lot of things continuing to come. We're making recommendations on. If you hear of bills in the state that you're interested in, we're working on, keeping the message of unfunded mandates, how important they are to our communities, that they can really be devastating. But just a lot of things going on, and it's just something different every day. Your head just kind of spins with some of the stuff coming up there. But so just go through that on your time. I don't want to spend too much time on it. If you do want anything else, let me know, and we can email you what you need, or the bill numbers that are on there, you can look them up. And go to coloradolegislature.com, I think it is, and you can look those all up. Family leave is still becoming going to be a big issue. They haven't really put forth a bill. There's 2 or 3 coming, so we're going to have time and look at all those and see how they could potentially affect us. So any questions on anything? Okay. And Curtis? Oh, and I do have one last thing. If you know someone who lives out in the Calhan area or the Rush area, Envita has just started bus routes 2 days a week to get in town. It's $5 one way. They can drop you at various places, or you can end up at the transit hub in downtown Colorado Springs. But you can't get a taxi in from Calhan or the Peyton and Rush in those areas for $5 each way. So it's $5 for people under 60, but 60 and up are free. So it's to get our seniors and things into their doctor's appointments. So if you're interested, anybody's interested in that, it's a great service that they've started for our area.
Cool.
Mayor and Council, I was prepared to kind of get into the details kind of during the staff report outs at the end, unless you would like me to do it now.
Either way is fine if you want to go. Yeah, because a lot of times everyone leaves by then, so.
Okay, I can go through it now. House Bill 201119 originally started with the intent of working on some things that needed to be addressed with the legislation that was passed last year, focusing on firefighting and not really on water and wastewater utilities. The State Health Department added 2 additional sections, a section for water and a section for wastewater. And as our local sponsors of the bill, Dennis Heisey and Lois Landgraf, signed on as sponsors, they weren't aware originally that those sections had been added. Overall, those 2 sections granted the State Health Department very broad rulemaking authority over water utilities and over wastewater utilities that left us with a lot of concern. On the 17th, they had a stakeholder meeting. I took a lot of notes there, along with others that were present. We put together a coalition that included CML, the Water Utility Council, water utilities, Denver Public Works, Denver South Metro. So a big group of us came together to submit amendments to the legislation. We've got those in last Friday, and today I was invited by Lois Landgraf to a meeting where the state presented their suggested amendments to the bill sponsors. The meeting went really well. I'm pleased at where we've landed. It's much better legislation now, and we're not done yet. So we've got a stakeholder meeting Thursday. We've got the first committee meeting next week on the 3rd. So more work to do on this. I think in the end we'll get to some legislation that we can live with that will actually be beneficial to us. One of the most substantial pieces in it, and there are some concerns, is the state's desire to set up an enterprise fund to help us with mitigation. Right now they're targeting petroleum storage facilities as a source of funding where they would collect monies, and there's some concern around that. So we're going to continue discussions around where they would get funding and where we would get a sustainable source of funding for help going forward. But a lot of the legislation is going to focus on data collection, and then we push back on what the data is used for.
Okay, thanks for doing all that.
And this is really good because this is where the relationship that we've developed with the state and those stakeholders is really paying off. That Curtis is being at the table and invited to these meetings, and in his opinion is being very widely respected, and they're listening to him. And I think if we hadn't been developing those relationships during this issue for the past couple of years, we probably wouldn't be at the table right now and having as much as a say in this. So Curtis is going back up Thursday, and then him and I will talk afterwards, and we'll go up Monday and testify to see where we're at with that.
Okay, thanks. The only thing I have for tonight, I just got back on Saturday from DC on that trip. I was invited to share with other mayors about the Communities That Care initiative that we have going on here in the city. And I spoke with 3 other mayors. St. Paul, Minnesota, there was someone from North Carolina, and there was another, I can't remember where he was from. He was kind of a last minute addition. And I was just looking that up to see where he was exactly from. St. Paul, Fayetteville, North Carolina, Grand Rapids, and of course Fountain. And so we all kind of just talked about different things, and 2 of those communities up north really talked about their snow and the issues that communities have, and so it was quick and dirty, and they had me up there for about an hour and a half, and but well received, and had some really good thoughtful questions after that. They asked the panel, and they had a few questions for me, and so kind of a neat deal to go be a part of, and they have conferences across the country that they meet with mayors and just kind of bounce ideas and showcase communities, and they came to us. So I didn't. Just one day I got an email, and they said, we'll pay your trip and your hotel and everything, so come on out. And so I got to see DC for a little bit, so that was nice too. But fun trip. But other than that, I don't have anything else that we need to look at. So let me look at our agenda. Public to be heard. Citizens may address items that are not on the agenda. We ask that you sign up with the city clerk prior to the meeting. City council may not be able to provide an immediate answer, but will direct staff to follow up out of respect for the council and others in attendance, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. I have 2 cards. Our first one is Miss Jolene Hausman.
Hello, City Council and new City Council members. I'm Jolene Hausman. I'm the Executive Director of the Fountain Valley Senior Center, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, nonprofit actually housed in the city of Fountain and serving the Fountain Valley region. I just wanted to touch base with you guys today and thank you for a couple things. First of all, Todd, and then the 2 city council staff members, Craig Williams and Dwayne Goodwin. We set up our stage during the holidays for all our performances, and the stage piece is way, way too much for me or my staff to move. And so the lovely city of Fountain helps us out in setting up that stage. So without you guys, I would be in rehab right now for physical therapy. So thank you so much.
Oh, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
and for clarification, Todd, for insurance.
Yeah.
Insurance,
Todd did not touch the stage.
Yeah.
He sent the heavy
I
lifters.
think he could anyway if he wanted to.
Yeah. No. And then I would like to thank the council's presence and Sharon Thompson's presence on the board of the PPACG board. Every year there's carryover funds for AAA, which is the Area Agency on Aging, for transportation. And usually with those carryover funds, by the time you apply for the carryover funds, the TRS committee votes on them, the RAC committee votes on them, then it has to go back to PPACG board. And this year they made the very effective decision, in my humble opinion, to just go ahead and give the approval that once the committee approves it, those funds can start to be spent, which means for local nonprofits, we don't have to wait till the last week in March to use it or lose it. So it's a much more effective way of getting resources into our community. And I'm proud to announce that for the second year in a row in the history of the Senior Center with carryover funds, we got another new vehicle. And our vehicles are almost as old as I am. So the new vehicles on our fleet are going to be absolutely amazing and better fuel management and emissions. So it just helps us overall. And then real quick, I also wanted to touch base on 2 things that are going to benefit the citizens of Fountain. The new 2045 plan for transportation in the past, the specialized section, has only majority focused 90% on Mountain Metro's mobility transportation, and paratransit is not specialized transit. Specialized transit is federally mandated to be with the fixed route system, and so that section of the report got put in with the fixed route system, which means the 2045 plan focuses only on specialized transportation, which is us, Invita, Silver Key, and other smaller nonprofits, and that means all the federal funding will be redirected into above and beyond specialized transit, so door-to-door and door-through-door transportation for seniors and the disabled. It will no longer be funding paratransit of other municipalities. And with that, we are working with PPACG, so once again, thank you, to rehouse the federal FTA 5310 funds instead of it going to the city of Colorado Springs as the UZA, to go through PPACG and have those funds actually meet the taxpayers and the citizens that use those funds. Currently, they receive over $1 million a year, and not a single penny is being spent on actual rides. So we're working closely. Fountain Valley Senior Center, Invita, and Silver Key are partnering with PPACG to increase the accessibility and mobility of our seniors and the disabled, and that will extend to Fountain because that's part of the FTA MPO area. So we'll see a lot more funds that are rightly deserved in our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Nope.
That is a direct result of me going to Jolene like on the second day on the job and said, put the puzzle pieces together. And she has worked nonstop on that, so I really, really appreciate that. And it's like you said, over $1 million in rides that are going to be provided. Thank you, Jolene.
Thanks, Jolene. Okay, our next card is Commissioner Gonzalez.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Lojinos Gonzalez representing VFW 6461. First of all, I just wanted to congratulate and welcome the new council members. It's my first meeting with you here. So, for the VFW, just two things. So on January 2nd for the Super Bowl, they will have a Super Bowl party over at the VFW. So February 2nd? Yes. So Sunday afternoon, they're doing a chili cook-off. So if anybody wants to participate in that, have your chili in by 3 o'clock. And I believe the game kickoff is at 4:30. So come over for some great specials. And then on the 15th, the Cub Scouts is coming out, Danner Troop 138. So if you know any families who'd like to perhaps join that troop, that'd be a good day to come out and find out a little bit more about them and perhaps join that Dan. I think the Cub Scouts are Dans, right? So I'm not an expert on the Scouts. Okay. And then as a county commissioner, I did want to put out, I know Chuck Berman, our clerk and recorder, presented today just some information. February 3rd for unaffiliateds who would like to get one primary ballot versus the other one. You don't have to pick a party to join, but as an unaffiliated, you can request just one of the party, so it saves on printing costs, because otherwise they will mail you both a Republican and a Democrat primary ballot. You can only return one of them. You cannot vote in both the primary for the Republicans or the Democrats. So they just ask that you choose your party preference for the vote. That will occur on March 3rd, but those go out in about 2 weeks. But the deadline to affiliate, to receive just one of the ballots, if you know which one you want to participate in, is February 3rd. Again, that does not make you a party member, but it saves some costs if you just request the one. Yes, and that is at www.govotecolorado.gov.
So,
Great transition.
Or you can get both, but you can only send one back.
Yes, and if you so you cannot say, oh, for a Democrat presidential, I want to vote here, but then I want to vote for
Right.
The Republican senator. You can't mix them. If you send both back, they will throw both out.
Oh,
So that's why, yes, that's why it's very important.
Okay.
But
good to know.
it saves costs if you know you want to vote in the Democratic presidential primary versus any of the Republican primary ballots. This is the president. You'll want to just request that. So.
Okay.
Anything else? That's all I have.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you. All right. We'll move on to our consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be approved with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the council member, citizen so requests, in which case the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately at the discretion of the council. We have items A, B, C, D, and E. Mayor Pro Tem.
Move to approve the consent agenda items A, B, C, D, and E.
Okay, and Mr. Applegate.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of those items. Please vote.
7 yes, motion carried.
Alrighty. Item 8, old business, 8A, second reading of ordinance number 1745, an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Fountain from the planned industrial PI district to the regional commercial RC district for property sometimes known as South Park Technological Center located at 7159 and 7219 Banley Drive, Fountain, Colorado, and hereinafter more specifically described in Exhibits A and B. Ms. Martinez.
This is the second reading of ordinance 1745. There's been no changes to the ordinance since first reading.
Okay, any questions on this item on second reading? Okay, what would council like to do? Mr. Geek
Make a motion to approve.
and Ms. Estes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Did you need to say it? Are you good? Okay, we have, please vote.
Real
I'm sorry.
quickly. Oh, never mind. Go ahead. 7 yes, motion carried.
Okay, sorry.
I didn't see her light.
Item 9, new business. We had no items removed. We'll go to 9B, resolution number 20-007, a resolution amending resolution 08-027, time of the Fountain City Council meetings. Ms. Huffman.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Mr. Mayor, It's my understanding at the last council meeting that city council wanted to address a new start time to our city council meetings. We did have a resolution that was approved in 2008, moving our city council meetings from 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. This is a necessary amendment to that resolution, allowing for the first meeting of each month to begin at 5:30, only upon the request of a proclamation or announcement or something to be heard prior to the council meeting. So it would be a requirement that council did appear at that 5:30 meeting if so requested. If not, then it would be notified to you one way or the other at the first meeting of each month.
Okay, and so my concern when I was talking to someone after is just making sure we all are aware that we have to be here at 5:30 if we do those, have those extra time to do our resolutions and things. And just to check, I think, make sure you're checking on the agenda that it doesn't say 5:30 or and then you miss, so.
We'll make it very clear, highlight it at the top of the agenda that
Okay.
it begins at 5:30 that meeting.
All right, Ms. Duncan?
If no other questions.
Oh, any questions, comments, concerns on this? Okay, Ms. Duncan?
I move to approve.
And Mr. Applegate?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second, please vote.
7 yes, motion carried.
Okay, and I meant to say this in the beginning and I didn't. We're gonna switch D and C, because the chief's presentation kind of leads itself into the strategic plan update. So we're gonna go ahead and have item 9D first, CompStat and micro community policing presentation. Chief Hever.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for being here tonight. I had a very long, boring brief for you all prepared, but now we'll give a very short, exciting 7-slide brief. I know the mayor would fire me tomorrow if I was yapping here for 2 hours. So, welcome to our CompStat brief. As part of the strategic city plan, we ought to brief the council on some of the things we try to do over the last year, really to make an effort to improve the citizens, their quality of life, secure and protect our community and reduce crime, and also work with our citizens. Here with me tonight is Wanda Cabello. Wanda, please stand up. Wave. All right. A lot of the goodness tonight, and Wanda's very humble, and she doesn't want me talking about her and bragging her, but, you know, a lot of her work, and Todd first turned me on to how good Wanda was. You know, Wanda's been in our community a long time. She worked in the school district. We were very blessed to get her at the PD when Todd was here. Todd really gave me the nod on when we were looking for a crime analyst in 2016 to really look at Wanda. So she's been a blessing and godsend. She's very passionate about this program. A lot of the slides, the slide deck you have before you, she's produced that. She works tirelessly every day to make sure we're doing everything possible to do good policing and be where we need to be. So I wanted to tell you that, Wanda, in public. I know you're very humble, but I wanted to say that. The slide that you have before you that's not going to be in this brief, and you can go to the next slide, is the slide that Mr. Trainer had produced for the budget cycle. I just want to remind everybody what that's like. I know we have a couple of new city councilors. Number one, it's no secret that our resources are limited. Scott did a good job on depicting the slide where we've seen 92% population growth over the last 15 years. That's been paired to the budget, the way the budget has laid out. And there's a delta of about 15% on per capita for every person. So basically that means is that all departments, not just the police department, but you know, parks, streets, all the departments, compared to our population and where it was, there's a significant funding gap. So we got to be creative. We got to look at creative solutions. So in the police department, we really looked at CompStat on what we could do to be effective. CompStat was first kicked off by Bill Brennan. He's one of the legends still living in law enforcement, and Mayor Rudy Giuliani in New York City. And that was a time period when New York was under great siege. Their murder and crime rate, violent crime rate, was at all-time high. So they had a couple of things that we don't. They had 30,000 cops. They had a $200 million budget, and they did stop and frisk. And they were able for a series of years really to reduce the crime, right? So we don't have those things here. But what we do have is a great community and good police officers and a good city. So we took a stab at it. We do it in a way that modifies on what we felt best worked for Fountain. At the core of that is two principles of law enforcement. Number one is the broken windows theory, which basically means if you address small problems first, then you can stamp out and correct big problems before they overrun neighborhoods in your city. Number two is the Sarah model of policing. It's one that I kind of like. It is the scan, the analyze, the react, and then assess those things. So we've nested our fundamentals of CompStat, which really stands for compare statistics, in those two models. For me as a military guy, I will just tell you that intelligence drives operations. We used to say that in the Army. John knows that from his time. So it's no different than using all of the crime intelligence that we can gather in the city of Fountain to drive our operations and where to be with limited resources. That's the short of it. Commander Frank Lewis executed this in the city of Detroit. He will call it cops on a dot. You could call it crime has a heartbeat, but it has a pattern. Wanda's been tracking these slides since 2018, so every year we're able to track these, our crime statistics in great detail. We can get smarter on predicting when the hotspots are going to be, what time of year crime really blossoms up. We had a spike last year right after the kids got out of school. So that's no surprise, right? But we'll be planning for that as the kids get out of school next year. The SROs will come back to the patrol division, so we'll really bolster our patrol division during those times. Overall, it's showing good success for us. I'll give you in the next slide, give you a little breakdown. So on this slide here, Wanda did a great job on taking a look with all the data. We're able to take a look going back to 2018 on a 2-week basis, how many incidents, calls for service, arrests that we have in a weekly average. So then we assign a normal range to that. For this reporting period, this is a sample. We had 8, so there was a 48% reduction in overall reported incidents, which put our Z factor at 1.8 and showed a moderate decrease for crime. So this is an example of a 2-week period that were good. Now, additionally, as we're looking at that, we look at each one of these incidents. In your slide deck, and I won't show it today, is an example of an incident where we roundtable with all patrol sergeants, all staff, all detectives, and the SROs present to make sure we're doing a couple of things. Number one is communicating. If you go to any organization, there's always a problem with communication. I think, the city can have it, we can have it, every organization does. So we make sure we're communicating, i.e. that the SROs, if we're working a problem in the schools, that the detectives are plugged in and assisting, patrol knows what to look for, and all resources are galvanized to that good outcome. If we're looking at a problem in patrol that needs to go to detectives, then we're able, myself or the commanders, able to make sure that it's passed to detectives. They have all the information, and we'll work to solve the crime and get good results for the citizens. So it does a lot of work for us. It's very, at times can be very detailed and painstaking, but we're putting together a good plan of action that's showing good results. Through this, certainly our most serious cases, a homicide or serious cases, our solve rates are 100%, and it's showing an increase across the board to get some of those things. So those are good. Next slide. So here's a couple of things. Here's the statistic all brief. So on the top, you have patrol checks and business checks. So these are examples of being proactive. These can come from citizens that request patrol checks. They can be cop-initiated patrol checks on businesses or neighborhoods where we have hot spots and they're in the area and we want to log that in to show we were present. And in this reporting year over last year, just think about the body of work, 6,495, 785 business checks. Last year in El Paso County, as you all remember, El Paso County led the state of Colorado in vehicle deaths. So it was a big effort across the board for everyone to get after it. I had some citizens ask me, I feel like I'm getting more tickets. And I'm like, we're all giving more tickets. We want voluntary compliance of traffic safety. If you drive in Colorado Springs, if you drive in Fountain, we all get across aggressive driving. We see it in school zones. We see it passing buses. I know the mayor, you've seen that a couple of times. I've talked to it. So people drive aggressively. We want to basically change the habits and get people to slow down voluntarily. That's the first line. But we did increase the number of tickets we issued last year. Those net results were positive in the fact that in 2018, we had 656 accidents. We reduced that number by more than 100 in 2019 to 546. So that was a significant decrease in the amount of accidents we saw across our community. In 2018, we had 3 fatalities. In 2019, we had 1 fatality of a traffic accident involving a motorcycle. So 1 is always too many, right? But we did feel like we made a solid effort to increase driving safety in our community. Of course, I tell my wife the story of Galen Steele, as he is well known to our community. that he's behind every bush, he's at every stop sign, he is certainly in every school, crossing guard area, so slow down. And she gets that. Her behavior is much improved, I guarantee you. Next. Next slide. So, yeah. She might be listening at home, I don't know. Okay, so this is a good slide for us. I chose to brief this one. So of all the 26 reporting periods of 2018, what you'll notice during those times is 5, we showed either a moderate or significant increase in crime. Those are highlighted in red or slight red. So we had a little disturbance in the force going into February, January, same time last year. And then this is the time period I wanted to highlight into about the time school got out. And I remember this time very vividly, many of you do. All of us were kind of thinking for about a month and a half period, what's going on in our city. So it was very cyclic. Todd can go back and probably attest to, during his time, it's just cyclic. So we're going to be better prepared. We're going to be better resourced during this time, and we're going to do everything possible. The vast majority of reporting periods, 13 was normal, and in 8 of them we showed significant decrease. I really kind of feel like in the last half of the year, as we kind of got, as everyone understood crime analysts, and we really got the most benefits and bang for a buck for our program, cops were being very proactive. We were collaborating. There was good synchronization amongst the PD. And the second half of the year, we were able to really stabilize it or reduce crime for the city. So closing out 2019, we felt very, very positive going into this year. So next slide. So here's kind of the direction we're heading now. During Todd's time, he had the ACT team that was then part of and partnered by then Corporal Lieutenant Racine. And what you'll know about now Lieutenant Matt Racine, he's probably one of the smartest cops in the region, certainly one of the most gifted police officers we have in our department. He knows how to be the police. He's leading the new team with 2 young cops. They were going to be here tonight, but they're actually dropped warrants on some individuals we're looking at tonight, so they're out doing business, which is good. So he's going to lead the team moving forward. Micro-policing really kind of means, in essence, that we zero down from the city into a specific neighborhood. We work with the community, the neighbors, all city resources to further reduce crime. I'll go to the next slide. So here's an example of how we're going to use it moving forward. This is a past slide. This was in September of last year. But we really had, for example, when we look at this slide and we neck it down, we had a spike at that one residence. Through good policing and some good detective work, we either made arrests and cleared that house up, and people decided to move from that house and are no longer present. So at a very micro level, neck down, that was a good outcome for that. We also, during this time, had a concentration of thefts. So one of the things that I really like, when our midnight guys come on and our swing shifts are present, they know exactly what neighborhoods to go look for. Look, nothing is worse from how a community member feels than waking up in the morning and finding your car is broken into, right? It's happened to me before in my past. You feel violated, you don't feel safe. So, we really put a lot of effort into trying making sure we get out and patrol the right areas and try and be predictive. Once we have enough patterns, we'll be able to predict if they hit in Countryside North here, more likely they're going to come to this area and location next, and we want to be there. To do that, we're going to use marked cars. We're going to do unmarked cars. We did purchase some night vision goggles and devices last year, a few of them, to assist our officers at night, right? We want to own the night and have the advantages to be able to look at the bad guys. So we're going to employ every asset of technology to continue to get after it. So that would be an example. Next slide. So that was the shortest, most exciting brief I think I could have humanly done. There is a lot to this. I could probably talk about crime analysts and what we're doing for 2 or 3 hours. We meet every Wednesday at every other Wednesday, 3 o'clock down at the police department. If you would ever like to come down there and be part of that brief and just sit in the back room. Miss Sharon, you were coming up the other day when we were getting ready to conduct that brief. You're welcome. You're very welcome to see what's going on. You're very welcome to see what we're doing, how we're thinking. There's been a few citizens that have come and seen me at the PD over the last year, and I've briefed them on the program. I've briefed them on the heat map and the different things we use to track the crime. And it's working. It's showing good promise. So we're going to continue to get after it. We're very excited. Wanda's very excited about the DICE team and the future of the DICE team. Wanda was doing a lot of good work today that has resulted in that team being deployed in the city tonight, going after and trying to clean some things up. So those are very good signs. I'll be brief, and do you have any questions?
Any questions for Chris? Nope. Thanks for all that, Miss Wanda. I know he said it, but we know you're if we didn't have you, I don't know who could do this work and figure it out for us. So thanks for spending your time and doing that for us. And tell Lieutenant Racine as well.
Yes, sir.
He is a smart dude.
Yes, very much so.
So thanks.
Very much.
Yeah. And that's the funny thing is we'll get reports every now and then, the kind of ones you want to send us, and I don't think the community truly understands what goes on here.
Correct.
In the dark, and for lack of a better word, and there's just a lot of bad stuff that happens all the time, but we've got a great department that's supported by another great department that really keeps us safe and able to sleep. You hear about the little things every once in a while, but there's some mean stuff going on, and
there is. We feel we've been very blessed to be right here, right in Fountain Valley, in the city of Fountain. We're surrounded by Pueblo to the south, our neighbors to the north, and we do everything possible to protect our borders, to be to put it real in layman's term, to be proactive at night. We make sure myself and the commander leaders, cops are out. They're in neighborhoods. I want bandits, when they drive through this city of Fountain, to see 3 or 4 cop cars, driving around, present on the thoroughfares in the neighborhoods. One of the things me and the commander talk about is we don't want to get behind it. Todd was just telling me a statistic the other day. There's 13,000 people moving to El Paso County every year. It's annual, right? And as Todd has briefed on many of the plans for the construction in Fountain, if we drop 5,000 homes in the next 5 years, that's going to be an impact. Those 5,000 homes and families are going to bring, they're going to have some great people, going to have some military people, but a portion of those people are going to bring some of the problems that they had somewhere else, are going to bring them here. So we want to stay on top of it. We're going to work together. I think it's really going to go back to some funding issues for our city. I know that's near and dear to your heart, Ms. Sharon. Whether we look at D-Tabor in the future or look at other creative solutions, we're all going to need the help because all the city staff and all the team efforts, are important to citizens that live here. So thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. All right, our last item is the annual strategic plan update for 2019. It was originally supposed to be Scott. He's dealing with some illness, and we'll let John take over tonight.
All right, good evening, Mayor, City Council. So I'm John Trelch. I'm your City Strategy Manager. And as the Mayor mentioned, I'm standing up for Scott this evening to provide you an update on the strategic plan. And get started here. Okay, so the purpose of this briefing is to comply with the strategy's accountability measures and guidance that are in the strategy. If you remember, when we wrote the plan, we put some mechanisms in place to ensure that the staff was reporting back to City Council and the public on how we're doing in accomplishing what we set out to do in the strategy. So every 90 days, the staff updates the city manager in detail. And then, as the strategy indicates, twice a year, the staff provides an update to City Council and the public on the 4 strategic priorities and the 17 supporting strategic objectives that are in the strategy. So when I move to the next slide here, you're going to see quad charts for those for new council members. Quad chart basically reviews what the strategic priority is and what those supporting objectives are. And on that chart, you're going to see what we call the stoplights, right? So green, amber, or yellow, and red. And so this here just kind of shows what those bubbles mean. It's just laid out to be simple, that green means it's done. We've accomplished the objective, completed. Yellow's on track. And then red is, hey, we've got a problem. We got something's majorly gone wrong, and it's going to impact our ability to accomplish that objective. Okay, so jumping right into the first one. The first strategic priority we'll cover tonight is transportation infrastructure. This priority has 7 supported strategic objectives, and to date, 2 of those 7 objectives have been completed. Something to note on these objectives here, and as you look at the charts, the top left is the priority, just as to remind everybody what the priority is. To the right of that are the actual supporting objectives, and then there you can see that stoplight chart of green or yellow or red, kind of to give you the status of those objectives. Bottom left are the issues and comments noted by staff. This is the staff that are responsible for those. I would note that all the staff is here tonight that are responsible for each of these, so they can speak in to any of the questions you might have about them. And then to the bottom right is just the way ahead, what kind of happens next. So that kind of explains the chart. So looking at, again, at transportation infrastructure, everything is on course. One thing to note is that if these objectives are to be completed in 2020, it really relates to a project that is ongoing right now. So for instance, the Venatucci Bridge project that's scheduled to be completed in 2020. And so that's ongoing, and it's just really taking the next step in the project. Other objectives are really due in 2021. For instance, a staff analysis of the comprehensive road plan for Fountain. Yeah, the master transportation plan. And that objective has got to be completed in 2021. So really those ones are really in a planning and analysis phase still. So you'll see that trend on this quad chart related to the status. So there are any questions about transportation infrastructure and what you see here on this slide? Okay. The next strategic priority that we will cover is telecommunications technology and capabilities. On this slide, there's 5 supporting objectives here, 2 of which have been completed. Those 2 have to dealt with doing the analysis that was necessary to come back to City Council and provide options for how to approach telecommunications improvements. As you know, Council, February 18th, there will be a work session focused on telecommunications technology, and particularly in the broadband initiative. And really the status of this, this priority and the supporting objectives are really hinging on the outcome of that work session on February 18th. So you can see that, the 3 that are in yellow there are really dependent on the guidance that staff receives at that session. Are there any questions about this priority? Okay. The next priority is focused on distribution of public safety resources. There's 2 supporting objectives here. 1 of 2 was just completed just prior to me stepping up here, so thank you, Chief. So, so that slide would actually be updated, so PS1 would be actually a green bubble, and we'll reflect that in the next update. So the PS2 focuses on the Fire Station 2 remodel. Last council meeting, you did approve that contract to move forward with the remodel, so everything is on track there. And additionally, the fire department is still intents on hiring additional firefighter paramedics here in the first quarter of 2020. So no issues with this strategic priority or objectives. Are there any questions about this priority?
As the 2 yellow dots become green dots, do we go back and revisit this and come up with new objectives to keep moving forward, or is it just that strategic goal is completed?
That strategic goal is completed. So the only priority that has additional objectives that are indicated in the strategy to be written is the telecommunications and technology objective. So there we will write additional things, to do to support that initiative. But these others, once they turn green and they're accomplished, then that priority is considered, met. The goals have been met. And of course, council, you could always direct staff to accomplish more or come back to you with additional goals focused on that priority if you wanted to. You always have that discretion.
Well, for example, if in this one, would we come back and say a goal is to add another police officer to the staff in 2021?
So it's a fair question. It's a good question. I was going to give you a window from how I look at it. Our goals, while they may turn green, are ongoing on a continuous basis. We have a mechanism in place that we're going to continue to analyze and look at all the data from the police standpoint and then drive operations with it. James is going to do the same thing on the fire side. He's always geo-mapping future fire station locations, where should it be, how to address. So really from a public safety standpoint, ours will be ongoing, and can continue to brief you on an annual basis on what we think and what we're finding and recommendations for the 4th fire station. James in the next month or two will be briefing you on his plan for some new fire trucks to replace some of our 21-year-old equipment that we need to do. So we'll continue to stay in good touch with you on the public safety front to recommend resource requirements that the city can embrace and be a good steward of that, because we know it's tough when it comes to budgets.
And that's a great point. So thanks, Chief, because some of these objectives, once they're accomplished, they are kind of initiatives or programs that are up, continuing and need care and feeding. So we can certainly continue to provide status on those. And then again, if council wants, objectives are completed, if you say, hey, look, staff, go back, let's do some more objectives to support this priority and kind of further it along, we certainly will do that. Okay, the last of the 4 priorities that we'll cover tonight is regarding the availability of venues that support recreation and community activities. We have 3 supporting objectives for this priority. 1 of the 3 have been completed. Here, to direct your attention to RF1 regarding finding cost savings. This is a great partnership that's been created between Recreation Department and the utilities. The utilities initiated through their conservation program the upgrading and landscaping of a dog park. So this is an example of the utility looking at where they can make some investment and achieve some cost savings for a recreation department that can be reinvested and enhance the recreation program. So that's a great project. It's very complete, and there's continued collaboration between those two departments on other ideas for additional savings in recreation. The update on the rec center, the recreation center committee met last night, and I attended that meeting, and they're well on their way. It was a good turnout at that meeting. They are getting better organized each meeting. They're almost got their 501 status for nonprofit. They're out in the community. They've been talking to the community about the recreation center. They're kind of, they're getting sharper in their approach to that. Mm-hmm. They're looking at outside resources, bringing in some professionals to get some good advice and a way ahead of how to be successful in that effort. So I'd say that that effort continues, and I think it's in a good place at the moment. So there's no questions on that strategic priority. I'll just conclude to again reiterate that the city manager does do updates with the staff. We completed 4 of those in 2019. The strategy is definitely informing our key processes in the city, like particularly the budget process. So you can see, it's great to see as we get up and brief these documents, as we consider them for council and public consideration, that the strategy is consulted and is referenced frequently. So that's a good thing to see. The strategy is posted on the city's website. We do occasional social media as well to let people know the strategy is there. We have hard copies printed and distributed throughout City Hall here. In fact, there's some copies of the strategy in the back if citizens are interested. And then if citizens have questions about the strategy, there's 2 different ways that they can even reach out to us directly by email through the website, strategy2021@fountaincolorado.org, or our new Citizen Connect initiative. They can register and they can correspond that way, or just contact the city about any questions that they have about the strategy. So subject to your questions, council, that concludes my briefing and update.
Okay, any questions on the update?
Sounds good.
No, I'm always reminding myself that we have it and need to keep looking at it, and so it helps though in discussions with people when you can say, well, this is how this fits in, or why we're doing what we're doing, and so thanks for the update today.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. That is it for our business tonight. Correspondence, comments, and ex officio reports. We'll start with Todd. Anything? Troy? Chief Maxon? Chief Heber, anything else? Who do we got back there? Curtis, anything?
Just real quickly, Mayor and Council, made significant progress over the last 2 weeks, working on what transmission alternatives across utilities. We're entering into, thank you. We're entering into a system integration study agreement with them, and we should be able to get that executed, I think, Troy, in the next week or so. Yep, so really pleased because we were worried and we were kind of pushing hard, but we've made some progress now. Following up on the strategic priority update, it's not like creating new objectives, it's really more activities around the work that we're doing with Sylvia and Parks on trying to reduce their costs. Katie Hillman and I met with Sylvia. We've come up with another couple of initiatives. We'll get the dog park done. And we've got a couple of initiatives to focus on irrigation of the parks and the cemetery, and we'll continue to help them and support them on trying to manage costs. Related to the improving telecommunications objective, as you drive Highway 85, 87, you'll see that they're doing boring. If you look just along the west side of the highway, there's a contractor doing boring. We are a part of that contract. That is Verizon's contract. Co-location ordinance that you all supported has allowed us to get one conduit in with the work that they're doing. So we're already moving ahead with improving telecommunications through that co-location project.
Great. Wanted to let you know that. Awesome.
That's what I had. Thank you.
And so with that, just to kind of not clarify, so when someone like Verizon wants to put something in, we automatically get to put our conduit in and it at a much reduced cost.
Correct. Yeah, Verizon or anybody else that comes in
Right,
now
yeah.
to do any horizontal work, we can make a request to be a part of that project under the ordinance that you passed. So,
all right,
we're getting a lot of bang for the buck on that.
Yeah,
project.
that definitely. Okay. All right. John, anything else?
I've got two additional things. One is just an update on something that's going on in the broader community, from a military partnerships perspective, and you see it, a lot of in the news, and that is the pretty quickly developing United States Space Force. And so, you read about that, what's going on. There is a lot of things happening at Schriever Air Force Base and Peterson Air Force Base related to this. And, some of the visible changes you will soon see is, service members walking around in their uniforms, and it's going to say U.S. Space Force. Changes like we will no longer call Peterson Air Force Base an Air Force Base. It'll be Peterson Space Force Base. So they're moving out on creating the Space Force. You know that the Pikes Peak region, is they call it the epicenter of space. We direct a lot of the United States Department of Defense space activities here, as one of our council members is quite aware, and as well as our ballistic missile defense. So just wanted to provide a little update that, you see a lot of stuff about the Space Force going on, and so, we're watching that and excited to see that come here to our area as we support the military. The second piece also related to the military is I did attend the Joint Land Use Study Committee or Implementation Committee meeting as you directed. It is my assessment that I can continue to fulfill that role for Fountain and from a staff perspective, and that a council policy decision maker would not be necessary. So I'll continue to attend those meetings, and if anything changes, I'll certainly let you know that.
All right.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Awesome.
You can see about patches.
Okay. Thanks, John. Todd, go ahead.
Mayor, I want to clarify one number that we threw out there today, just because we're on video now, we're on the internet, but I want to make sure we love the chief's enthusiasm, but I want to let everybody know there's no way we will have 5,000 homes added to Fountain in the next 5 years. We average right around 150 right now. So I want to make sure that doesn't get out in the public anywhere that we think it or it's coming or anything else.
Too
Yeah,
late.
not happening.
Too late. It's out there. It's
No,
too late.
no,
Yeah.
No, won't happen.
That's funny. Okay. Commander, did you have anything to share tonight?
No, sir. Thank you so
Okay, Ms. Wanda, are you good still? All right, thanks for coming. Sorry the chief made you come. Anything from IT? Ms. Huffman?
I just want to thank council for attending our employee recognition. It was a huge success. Thank you for showing your support to the employees. And more than anything, I know that there's a group of people that helped this come together. But I want to thank Joni and Rosa for their efforts. I don't think everybody realizes how much time and energy and effort it takes to put it together and accumulate all of those gifts and plead and beg for donations. And so I just want to thank them publicly.
Yeah, and thanks to all the people who donated stuff too. So, yeah, Joni and Rosa do a really good job.
It was really great. Mhm.
Okay, I'll start with Ms. Dieter. Anything further?
And there's a program, we can tell our neighboring communities, our neighbors, that there's LEAP. Anyone that's having any difficulties paying for gas or heat in their home, that they can apply from now through March for LEAP.
Yeah, good program. Mr. Geek, anything further?
Yes, I went to an ESA meeting yesterday, and I want to thank Chief Maxon for the ambulance that we okayed tonight on the consent agenda. It was $194,000. And security's paying $219,000 for their brand new ambulance. So I appreciate the fact that you're keeping that cost down for us, and we're still getting the good stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Good job. Mr. Applegate?
Yeah, I will be attending the State of the State luncheon on this Friday, the 31st.
Great.
And any information that pertains to us, I'll be bringing back. I'm doing it as with the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department as a member.
Send the governor our best.
Oh, I will.
Ms. Thompson, anything?
Only Phil says hi.
That's good. Ms. Estes, anything? Mayor Pro Tem?
Nothing for me.
The only thing I do want to announce, I'm surprised Chris or either chief didn't say, this Friday and Saturday at Peaks and Pines Brewery, we have a brew that one of our own cops helped to develop and brew. It's going to be called Nozzle Jockey. And the proceeds, it's $1 for every pint sold, is going to go to Shield 616 to help suit our firefighters. And there's a lot of people that don't understand that concept of why we have to give our firefighters things. And people forget again that the firefighters are right there in the mix, and they need to be protected just as much as our police guys, because they want to get in there and get those people out as quickly as possible. And this will again provide that service. And the other thing I just want out there is, if every city could provide these things, we definitely would. Just the costs are so exorbitant that it would wipe out our budget, I know for sure. So thanks to Shield 616 for going that extra mile, and it's been an awesome thing that we've been a benefit of. So both days, just come on out. They're going to also have if you're into growlers, they're going to be selling a special edition growler. Is this still happening with our which logo on it?
616 FD badge, PD badge.
Yeah, on the growler. So you can buy that as well. So come on out to Peaks and Pines, and thanks to Peaks and Pines for wanting to be a part of the community and helping with that. So yeah, they have. So okay, with that, no executive session.
John's got some.
I've got one alibi, Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
Fresh in. So, Councilmember Applegate, you are correct, and Congressman Lamborn as well, that House passed H.R. 535. It's called the PFAS Action Act this month, so it's now over to the Senate. There are some that would say that it won't survive the Senate, but certainly if council would like to speak on the issue, we will prepare that for you to consider,
So
and we
maybe-
can forward that
And
to
contact your senators.
Do we know when that would go to the Senate, or how long that would take,
to go to the Senate.
or like a vote on it?
You know,
Well, we're good for 2 weeks.
You can certainly get the timeline tomorrow, and I'll certainly follow up. But just wanted to give you an initial report about that. Yeah, that is in fact through the House, and it's with the Senate now. So we can move quickly, and you can gather signatures, individually if necessary, if you all would like to speak on the matter.
Well, I was hoping they'd be done. Okay, thank you. All right, no executive session. We are adjourned. See you on February 11th.